I don't like AccuWeather, but I'm going to make this video to document why so far 2022 has just been more unbearable than 2021. 2021's weather overall was milder than 2022. In 2021, we had a less aggressive winter, but more swings in the fall. But the temperature kind of hovered at more tolerable levels. The heat that we're experiencing now is like what happened in August twice, except that now it's way, way, way worse. So I'm going to make this video to kind of talk about why 2022 has been more unbearable quickly. So, in the beginning, the first 2 days of the year were very mild. In 2021, they weren't as mild. Oh god, it's 93, feels like 97, and it's like there's wind, but it's not even like a cooling breeze. It's kind of blowing around the warm air, so this feels weird. And the humidity levels, this is the most desert like I've ever felt. And there's brush over there, so I would kind of be careful of that. Yeah. So, it is based on my location, not New York City or anything. But the thing is that then January came through. Now, well, the city was 3.4 degrees below normal in January. We were only 0.1 degree below normal. Last year in the city, I didn't check for here, but last year in the city, they were 1.1 degrees above normal. Last year in about January, that would have brought that would have been one of the 5 least snowy Januaries into the last couple hours, where the opening volley of snow on February 1st, the snowiest first day of any month, came through, which dumped a couple of inches before the month could officially change. So as such, it's been about 35 less snowy Januaries, but it was still not snowy at all. There was very little snow. But what wound up happening was that after that, the temperatures began to deteriorate. So the winter was very not pleasant. After the 1st and 2nd of January, almost every single day had freeze. January 17th did it with a low temperature of 34. January 6th did it with a low temperature of 35. January, can I actually not think of a January day where no part of it was below freezing? Damn, this just shows how much of a cold January we had, honestly. That's all that shows, I think. There were a lot of days where I failed to get above freezing, including the last days of the month where we had our only official cold wave that's 3 days below freezing. New York City has a 6-day cold wave, but we got lucky because while on the 28th they had a high of only 32, which isn't cold wave territory, we had a high of 35, which helped break it up. What happened was that on January in December 2017, January 2018, I remember where I live I might have just talked stuff. Where I lived had a high of 33, and New York City had a high of 31. So while we had a 13-day cold wave, they had a 14-day cold wave. That was like one of the biggest cold waves on record. It also led to the second coldest ball drop, and how the last minute of 2017 was the coldest, with an air temperature reading of 9 degrees in the city. It was also 9 degrees out here in the suburbs. But overall, January 2021 was more mild. I don't know if it had any official cold waves. Their coldest temperature I mean, the warmest temperature was 53 degrees, but the thing is that most of the days, at least in the beginning of the month, they get to the 40s, whereas this year, it getting into the 40s was not only was it a rare occurrence, but it was also something where there would always be a chilly night on one end. Either it would warm up to the 40s from a temperature in the teens or low 20s, or it would cool back off to that point. So overall, January was not a very pleasant month, starting on January 3rd, which was a temperature crash day. However, relief from the cold would be in sight in February, which in the city was 1.7 degrees above normal, but where I live was actually 5.1 degrees above normal, compared to last year when the city was 1.4 degrees below normal, and they had the 8th snowiest February on record. This year we had, I think it was one of our least snowy Februarys, but I think it was in the top 40, but I think that there was still like somewhere in the 20s to 30s less snowy Februarys, and here we actually had a lot more snow than the city, because the February 13th storm dumped 1.5 inches on the city, dumped 4 inches here, which overall isn't too bad. The interesting thing was that storm came on a day where the temperature the day before reached 61 degrees here, and it only hit 57 in the city, so eat that. Then they had a lot more 68-degree days than us. I'll talk about that later. So 61 degrees, and the temperature the day where it was snowing was still 44 at midnight. So it was warm before it snowed. But the day after that, the high was 26, and it was our last day with the high stuck in the 20s. In 2021, this would happen on February 18th, in the middle of a winter storm, with the high of 29, but their low of 25 would be much better than a low of 16 on this day. Thankfully, our time in the teens would soon expire. So overall, you're starting to say, wow, 2022 must be a better year to live in. Well, January was more hostile. Our biggest snowfall in 2022 was about, at least where I live, was about 2 inches greater. And February was characterized by extreme temperature swings, like when February 4th was 51.27 and February 5th was 29.20. When February 12th was 61.42, February 13th was 44.26, and February 14th was 26.16. Then when February 15th was 26.17, I think, the low was 17. Then when February 15th was 30.17, February 16th was 44.17, and February 17th was 56.44. Then when February 23rd was 69.37, I was in Seattle, and the next day was literally 37.29. That was how February was characterized, and the month ended and started in days that had highs constrained in the mid-30s. So overall, poor weather. Also, only one Friday had good weather, despite 3 Fridays getting into the 50s, mainly because of rain. The other Friday was stuck in the 30s and it was sleety. Ew. Yuck. Gross. Now March. While the two Marches were overall relatively similar, the end of the month was very different in 2021. On March 26th, we had a low of 50 degrees and a high of a searing 82 degrees. That is summer-like weather that is stuck in the end of March. That is a summer preview. It was hot that day. The next day, March 27th, while a substantial cool-off, still had a low of 49 and a high of 66, which is still nice for March. Temperatures, however, would wane through the rest of the month. Now this year at the end of March, the story would be different. March 26th was when the polar vortex began to break down, and on March 27th it actually did break down, leading to a high of 48 and a low of 30. March 28th was the coldest day of the stretch with a high of 33 and a low of 23. Record low high temperatures were a defining part of this day that overall had miserable weather. It would not improve much until the last day when storms rolled through. Then, both early Aprils had substantial cold days, although in 2022's defense, April 2nd, 2021 was stuck in the 30s. At least April 3rd, 2022 was stuck in the 40s. But, I mean, it was still not pleasant. What I will say though is the lack of relief from the heat that May had. Literally that week in May, it was like cold, and then it got warm instantly with high humidity, with dew points getting into the mid 60s during the day and only relieving themselves to the upper 50s at night. 2021 had much lower humidity, and when it got cold, it could get colder, so you had more relief from the heat. June was better this year, but July is so much worse, mainly due to the ongoing heat wave.